Everyone laughed at his dream. They said it was impossible, unrealistic, foolish. They called him a failure before he even began. But years later, those same people were cheering his name, amazed at the man they once mocked. This is the story of a boy who turned their laughter into fuel and proved no dream is too big. There was a boy named Ethan who lived in a small town surrounded by hills and silence. He wasn't born into wealth, fame, or luck. He was just ordinary. But Ethan had something that made him different. A dream that didn't make sense to anyone else. He wanted to build airplanes, not toy planes, real ones. While other kids played games, Ethan spent hours watching the sky, tracing the flight of every plane passing overhead. He'd whisper to himself, "One day, I'll make something that flies." But to everyone else, it was just a joke. At school, when the teacher asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Ethan proudly said, "I want to build airplanes." The class burst out laughing. Even the teacher smiled awkwardly and said, "That's ambitious. Maybe choose something more realistic." Everywhere he went, people laughed. "Ethan, you can barely fix a bicycle. Airplanes. You don't even have a proper toolbox." But Ethan didn't argue. He just smiled and kept dreaming, even when no one believed in him. Every evening, he'd go to the junkyard outside town, collecting scraps of metal, broken fans, and old wires. To others, it was trash. To him, it was the beginning of something beautiful. His mom would watch him come home covered in grease and dust. "Son," she'd say softly, "you're working so hard. But are you sure this is worth it?" Ethan would nod and whisper, "I just know it is." By the time he turned 16, Ethan had built his first model, a small glider with wooden wings and a motor. It didn't fly. It didn't even move. The kids in his neighborhood gathered to watch his big invention. When it crashed before taking off, they roared with laughter. "Nice plane, genius!" one shouted. "Try paper planes instead." That night, Ethan sat alone on the porch, staring at the broken wings. His hands trembled. His eyes were wet. He whispered, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just a fool chasing air." He almost gave up. But then he remembered something his late father once told him. "Son, the world will laugh at your dreams until you make them real, and then they'll ask how you did it." That memory changed everything inside him. Ethan picked himself up the next morning. He studied harder than ever, watched videos, and read books on aerodynamics. He learned to weld and shape metal from an old mechanic who worked at a dusty town workshop. He started small again. One screw, one wire, one motor at a time. He made hundreds of mistakes, but each failure taught him something new. Years passed. He built dozens of models, all of them failures, until one morning. He took his latest prototype to a quiet field. He set it down on the grass, held his breath, and started the engine. The sound was weak at first. Then it grew louder. The propeller spun faster and faster. The plane lifted off. It didn't go far, just a few seconds of flight. But to Ethan, it was everything. He screamed with joy, jumping and crying all at once. That tiny flight proved he wasn't crazy. He was right. But then he remembered something his late father once told him. "Son, the world will laugh at your dreams." Soon, he got noticed by a small engineering college that offered him a scholarship for his designs. He moved to the city where the laughter turned into curiosity, then admiration. His designs started winning awards. His professors called him a prodigy. A few years later, Ethan stood in front of a crowd at an airfield. He was ready to test his first full-sized aircraft, built with his own two hands from years of failures and dreams. As the engine roared and the plane lifted off, people gasped. The same ones who once mocked him now stood silent. The boy who was laughed at had made the impossible real. His dream finally took flight. Today, Ethan's aircraft company is known across the country. His designs inspire thousands of dreamers every year. When reporters ask him how it all started, he smiles and says, "With a boy, a dream, and a lot of doubt." Because that's how greatness begins. Not with applause, but with laughter. Not with support, but with doubt. The world will laugh at your dream until the day you make it real. That laughter is not your enemy. It's your fuel. When people say you can't, let that push you harder. When they mock you, sharpen your focus. When you fall, because you will, stand up and remind yourself, why you started in the first place. Because someday, those who laughed will stand beside you and say, I always knew you could. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who's about to give up. Because sometimes, all a dreamer needs is a reminder that laughter doesn't define you. Persistence does. Keep going, keep believing, because one day, your dream will make them believe too.